Hello, welcome everyone. Hi, I can see people joining. Welcome, welcome. So while we wait and give folks a few minutes to join, why don't we go to the chat and introduce yourself to let us know where you're from, your name, and maybe the organization you work with. We'll be starting the session in just a few minutes, just like making sure everybody has time to find the link and join us today. Hey, Nathan, from the Charlie's Foundation for Research. Amazing. Hi, my name is Marina. I'm from the Raisley team, and we have Daniel, Jess, and Ben here from Guide Dogs. So happy you're joining us. Anyone else want to say hi in the chat? Tony, hi, from Mobility Dogs. Amazing. Nice to see you here. Hello, hello. The room is getting packed. Hi, Natasha. Andrea, I can see Karen as well. Hey, Helga from the Raisley team. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining, everyone. Amazing to see some new faces in the chat and also some very well-known ones. So for those of you who just joining, very warm welcome. My name is Marina, and I'm Raisley's Customer Marketing Manager. Actually, this is a very special week for me personally. This week marks my 4-year anniversary at Raisley, and I'm beyond delighted to be here joining one of our customers, the amazing people from Guide Dogs, New South Wales, and the ACT, to talk a little bit about an amazing topic, which is digital accessibility for fundraisers. If you've been with Raisley for a while, you probably know that we are passionate about making fundraising better and more accessible for everyone. So that's what this session is all about. Hello, Catherine from BCNA. Good morning, Lisa from Guide Dogs. Hello, Gemma from Climate Council. Glad to see you all here. So I think we can see your screen, Jess. All good on my end. Everybody can see the slide deck, okay? Hello, Christine. Amazing to see you here. Okay, so let's get started. Before we jump into this webinar, I wanted to take a minute to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we live and work at. So I live and work in São Paulo, Brazil, and the traditional owners of the land I'm in are the Tupiniquins people. So I wanted to pay my respects for their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all of the First Nations people joining us today. And to introduce you to those joining us today, we have Jess from Guide Dogs, New South Wales, and the ACT. She's a digital digital marketer and fundraising manager. We have Ben Moxie here, emerging technology and accessibility manager. And we have Daniel Nessie, their amazing digital campaign specialist. I'm so glad that you are joining today. They've been doing a fantastic work in this space, and we've been so grateful to have them here to share all of this amazing knowledge with us about how to create fundraising experience that are truly accessible for everyone, especially those with low vision or people who are blind. So without further ado, I'll hand things over to Jess, and Jess will kick us off.
Hi, Jess speaking. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Marina, do you want to share anything else about Raisley, or you're happy for me to
Yes.
do it?
Yes, I was too excited to start the webinar, but a quick introduction to Raisley for those who are new to us. I think some of you here know Raisley from a long time ago, so I'll be quick. We are a fundraising platform helping nonprofits out there just build powerful and customizable campaigns. We work with thousands of charities across, I believe, 51 countries last time I checked. And we're really proud to support causes like Doctors Without Borders, Black Dog Institute, and of course, guide dogs. So at Raisley, we really believe that fundraising tech should be flexible, intuitive, and accessible. And that's why we're hosting this webinar today. So thanks for joining again.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marina. So Jess speaking here. Thank you all for joining us. And we thought we'd use this opportunity to kind of showcase something we do at Guide Dogs to make our meetings as accessible as possible for everyone attending. So you'll notice that before we start speaking, we'll announce ourselves. So just say Jess speaking. We won't do it all the time, but just so you get used to our voices. Thank you, Marina, for explaining who's on the call and who'll be presenting. That's myself, Jess, Daniel, and Ben. There'll be only one person speaking at a time, hopefully. We'll describe meaningful visual content when presenting. Typically, we do send around the slide deck prior, but we'll be sending that out afterwards. So if we have any keyboard or screen reader users here, Raisley will be circulating it, I think, 24 to 48 hours after the webinar. And we will describe any meaningful visuals on the slide deck, but most of it is text-based. So you won't be missing out on a lot, which was, yeah, by purpose and by design. Please minimize chat. So thank you for all sharing where you're from. And we love to see that. But while we're presenting, a lot of screen reader users, when they have their voiceover on, it actually reads out every single thing that comes through through the chat. It can be disabled, but it's just good practice to be mindful of what you're putting in the chat and keep it to a minimum because it can be distracting. As well as background noises. We're in a webinar, so I think everyone's auto-muted, but for your own meetings, something to be mindful of. Camera on when presenting if possible, and feedback welcome. This is all, accessibility is a real learning journey for everyone. It's something that I'm still on. It's a constantly evolving space, so if you do have any feedback about how we conduct this webinar and how accessible it is, please feel free to reach out. So a little bit about guide dogs. I won't spend too much on this, but as you all may know, we essentially help people with low vision and blindness live the life of their choosing, whether that's through guide dog services or orientation mobility services. We also expand out into reaching out to the different sectors on how they can help us create what we call a boundless world, which is essentially people with low vision and blindness being able to live a life of their choosing. And we do this through a number of ways. We recently had the first, I think, Accessible Beauty Summit. We reached out to a lot of people in the beauty space and a lot of people with influence in that area to talk about accessible packaging. We had a wonderful influencer called Molly Burke. I think she's a million subscribers on YouTube, and she's a beauty influencer who has blindness. And she came out and spoke and did a lot of media around how we can make beauty packaging more accessible. If any of you wear glasses and you've tried to be in the shower and figure out what's your shampoo and what's your conditioner, and they're in the exact same bottle, I think you can relate to that on some level. We also work with Sydney Airport about traveling with mobility aids. So people traveling with guide dogs to people traveling with canes, and how that can be less stressful and easier for some of our clients. We also host accessibility workshops for companies about how they can incorporate accessibility practices into their own workplaces. We also did a few sessions with some influencers on digital accessibility, which we're also happy to share some of those tips with you today. And most importantly, we choose to work with suppliers who'll partner with us on accessibility enhancements like Raisley. I've been at Guide Dogs for about 18 months now, and one of the first things we did was look at our community fundraising platform. And I really wanted to thank Raisley for coming to the table and saying, yes, we'll work with you on doing accessibility enhancements, because it's just part of how we can live our mission. And thank you as well for all attending today to start your accessibility journey. Every industry, there's room for uplift, and as people in the not-for-profit and charity space, I'm hoping this is a big step forward to help get our industry more accessible to people who have low vision and blindness. So I'm going to play you a short video, and it's just for more context about what a boundless world is and what we're trying to achieve by hosting webinars like today for you.
Four people with blindness or low vision sit with their guide dogs or canes on a film set.
A lot of the things that sighted people are able to use are not accessible to me as a blind person.
Text on screen reads, how accessible do you think the world is? The people speak to the camera.
Navigating websites and images is still quite difficult.
People just drop images and videos and there might not be a lot of context. When it comes to shopping in person, I will avoid shops with a terrible layout.
I have a cupboard full of herbs. Every herb is in the exact same shape container, so I'm not able to tell what it is without opening it and smelling it.
The world is not designed for people with blindness or low vision, but it could be. Slowly but surely, we are changing that narrative.
The problem isn't with the person, it's with the barriers.
Text on screen reads, we're asking brands to work with us to help improve accessibility.
Having the forward thinking to make sure that your shop or your products are accessible to everyone is definitely better for the longevity of a brand. It just makes it better for everyone involved.
A woman smiles down at her guide dog. Text on screen reads, the world is for everyone, so let's make sure everyone can access it.
Join us in the search for a boundless world.
Guide dog's logo appears with text, for a boundless world.
Great. So again, thank you to everyone for attending and choosing to spend an hour of your day with us to help learn how you can make your products, including fundraising, accessible to everyone. On the screen currently, there is a very snazzy headshot of Ben Moxie, our emerging technology and accessibility manager, with him holding a little yellow Labrador. And on the right-hand side, there is a screenshot of the community fundraising hub that we've built with Raisley. There's a very cute picture of an adult yellow Labrador laying on the grass, looking very ponderous, actually, staring off into the camera, and it says fundraise for guide dogs your way. But to talk you through what good accessibility looks like and why digital accessibility matters, I'll hand you over to Ben Moxie. And Ben, I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Great, thanks, Jess. And I love the way you said a snazzy headshot. I'm picturing it now being quite glary off my forehead. So for anyone in the audience can't see the screen, no hair on this head. So I'm kind of mindful of how much glare is coming off it right now with a light shining on me. So apologies for anyone who's glare sensitive. My name is Ben Moxie. I am the emerging technology and accessibility manager here at Guide Dogs. Appreciate you coming along today. Quick bit about me. I guess how I came to work at Guide Dogs, or just the blindness industry in general. I am totally blind myself. Lost vision about 25 years ago. In fact, I had low vision all my life, but lost it entirely back then. So for me, no vision. So basically, I can't see any light or dark. It's very different from most. And interestingly, there's only about a 3 to 5% of the blind and low vision community are in my scenario, totally blind. Most have some functional vision. So I would say just never make assumptions. I spent a long time teaching people how to use blindness assistive technology, so screen readers on computers, so they can still use your everyday Windows, Mac computers, iPhones, Android phones independently. And it's very much how I've maintained my independence and been able to do whatever I wanted to do in life, you know, and find employment, etc. So here to talk about the importance of accessibility. And look, I think you're probably aware of it. It's probably part of the reason you signed up to come to this webinar today. So I want to put it in really simple terms. It's basically just the ability for someone to come and engage with your content. So it could be read your blog, read your newsletters, get on and buy your products online in the physical world, access your storefront. And I think that's where it becomes most in your face. Like I bet we've all been in the scenario where you may even have a good friend who uses a wheelchair and you've gone to some venue, and because accessibility hasn't been considered, they're not able to get in. Okay, so it could be a restaurant, they can't wheel up because there's no ramp. Like I said, really in your face, and I think it's pretty obvious to us all that that's a clear accessibility barrier. I think what a lot of people don't realise is a similar sort of thing is happening in people's houses, wherever they use their computers or smartphones all the time. There's someone in the scenario like I am who can't see the screen at all. They really want to engage with your product. They might want to make donations, buy something, and they go to the website and they can't do it. Okay, so just know that there are millions of people around the world with blindness and low vision and other disabilities who want to get on and engage with your digital content. So I'll show you a couple of things quickly here today, just some simple examples of enhancements we've made in conjunction with Raisley to make our fundraising pages more accessible. And I mean it when I say simple, they are pretty simple to implement. So I'll share my screen now. And just bear with me for a second and I'll get the screen reader audio to come through too. So what I'm using here at the moment is a standard Windows computer, and I have a screen reader running on this computer called JAWS. It's one that you typically find in employment and education environments, a commercial screen reader. Just out of interest, I'd love to mention the really good free alternatives out there. NVDA for anyone using a Windows computer. If you know anyone who is blind, looking for a good screen reader for everyday use, NVDA, non-visual desktop access, is a really excellent. I think it's underestimated just how powerful it is. Just bear with me for a second, team.
Screen sharing meeting controls.
Okay, so hopefully all going to plan.
Share preview WA.
A synthesizer called Australian Karen.
Screen sharing meeting.
That's what it's called. Australian Karen should be coming through loud and clear on your end.
Folder view list.
Hopefully I've adjusted the speech rate so it's nice and clear for everyone, and you should see my desktop at the moment. So I've got our Raisley fundraising page open, so I'll move to that now.
Task switching. Screen sharing meeting. Guide Dogs NSW/ACT Community Fundraising Google Chrome. Guide Dogs N.
And as you can anticipate, I'm doing everything with using a series of keyboard commands, because obviously when you can't see, you don't use the mouse. So I'll come to the top of the page here now.
Guide Dogs NSW.
So this is our community fundraising page. Now, because we've paid attention to include a good, meaningful heading structure, so I mean proper headings. You're using the styling that's part of HTML, your web-based platforms, where you can define a heading. So I don't mean just increasing the size of the font, making it bold, etc., so it stands out visually. So in that case, they're very helpful for our visual users. But if you come in here not being able to see, the screen reader won't capture the fact that it's larger and bolded. Okay, so when you've got a proper heading structure implemented, it means that I can come in here as someone that can't see at all, and I have the same ability as you do with vision. I can move through heading by heading. I'll do that now.
Fundraise for Guide Dogs Your Way heading level 1.
Fundraise for Guide Dogs Your Way. And you've noticed the screen reader has told me that's a heading level 1. So it's telling me there's a structure there. So I'm going to say, great. Okay, I'm going to move to the next heading, and I'm doing this just by pressing H on the keyboard.
How would you like to make a difference heading level 2?
Okay. All right. How would you like to make a difference? I'll move again by heading.
Individual fundraising heading level 3.
So what that's telling me is individual fundraising comes underneath the how would you like to make a difference area. I can determine all of that structure just through sound, because this heading structure has been implemented well. Now, like I said, it seems simple, and it is to implement, makes such an impactful difference. Because let's say there's a whole bunch of content underneath this, how can I make a difference? I know they're all heading level 3s. For example, I'll jump to the next one.
Team fundraising heading level 3.
Let's say I'm not interested in this whole section here. So just like someone can, that with vision, they can scan down to the next larger heading. I can do that using the keyboard. I'm going to jump straight over this whole section now.
Additional fundraising activities heading level 2.
And I've moved to the next heading level 2. So you can probably quickly determine just how efficient it makes that. Let's say there were 15 paragraphs under one of these headings and it wasn't relevant to me. Without a heading structure, you've got the person manually going down through all the content. Okay, so I'll try and speed this up because I'm mindful I never, ever stop talking.
Guide Dog.
I'll come back to the top of this page here now. The next thing that's a really easy thing to implement is appropriate alternative text on your images. So if I jump to the first image on this page now.
Guide Dogs logo graphic.
You'll notice we've included the simple alt text there that tells the person it's the Guide Dogs logo. Okay, if I move to the next image.
Guide dog in harness walking in the park with handler graphic.
Guide dog in harness walking the park with a handler. So I'm repeating that just in case the speech isn't coming through loud and clear, or it might be a little bit quick. But you can see there, if someone that can't see will come across these pictures and they know what the content is. So ideally with that, you keep the alt text nice and short, ideally 1 to 2 really short sentences. You don't want paragraph after paragraph because it can be difficult to analyze, and it can also really interrupt the flow of the page. So short and sweet is your ticket there. You just want to concentrate on what's important about that image. So another thing that you'll notice here is that Daniel...
A closed dash up of a cane with a rolling tip.
So I've just moved to another image there. I'll move to another.
Guide dog in harness with the Sydney Opera House and Harbour in background.
Now, what you'll notice is you can probably see some decorative elements, and I probably should have clarified this with Daniel and Jess before this presentation, because obviously I can't see them. But there's typically some decorative elements on this page that are purely there to make it look pretty. Okay, and what you can do is mark those as decorative. And in fact, on the Raisely platform, they've got a nice, neat implementation there. If you don't have alternative text on your images, it will automatically mark it as decorative. So please, Daniel, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong there. But just for interest's sake, if anyone is out there on a different platform and you have got an image and you don't want the screen reader to announce it because it could be meaningless, it might be a little tiny chevron, or it might be just a decorative line, something that's not adding any context to the user, you can simply write alt equals quote, quote. And that means the screen reader glosses straight over the top, and you'll notice that my screen reader is doing this here. The last quick thing I'll demo on this page here is having descriptive links. Once again, really easy to implement. And what we mean by that is if I jump to these links now, I'm just going to move to this first heading again.
Fundraise for Guide Dogs Your Way heading level 1.
Now I'm going to navigate to the next link.
Same page link start fundraising. Link register now for individual fundraising.
Register now for individual fundraising. So that's quite clear to me what I'm going to do if I activate this link. So a really common thing that you see is click here, learn more, or the link might just be the word here. And what's important to consider is many screen reader users will come through your content and they may navigate link by link. So if I do that now,
link register now for team fundraising.
It's a really common thing to do. So the idea is you want to be able to read that link text and you know exactly where you're going without hearing the surrounding text, because you'll notice now, I move to the next link.
Link register now for in memory.
The screen reader doesn't read the text around it when you're tabbing through from link to link. So that's what you're aiming for. Once again, short and succinct. You don't want to link full sentences or full paragraphs, because you can imagine that reading experience is quite frustrating. If you're getting a lot of content, so you want to keep it short and succinct, and ideally the link tells you where you want to go. So we've got some examples on this page here where it's not as ideal. Let me see if I can just quickly jump to them.
Link register now for link learn more.
Here we go, learn more. And you immediately think to yourself, okay, learn more about what? And the end of the day, screen reader users, if they're familiar with their technology,
blank, be active and fundraise for Guide Dog.
I'm using my up arrow then to go and read the content above so I can get the context, but the aim is you want to avoid that. So I'll quickly close this page here now, and apologies for moving through so quickly, but I want to make sure the others get an opportunity to speak.
Settings tooltip. Screen sharing me, Raisely webinar dash, screen sharing me, Raisely webinar dash file explorer.
Oh, went past the
Raisely webinar. Christmas appeal. Untitled dash Google Chrome. Sweater Dogs Christmas 2024.race.
I'll quickly show you what a good accessible experience can
Page
look
has
like
2 regions.
on the Raisely platform. So this is our 2024 Guide Dogs Christmas appeal. So once again, I can assume it's got a good heading structure.
Give the gift of independence.
So I'm moving by heading.
Your gift, heading level 2.
Your gift. Okay, so I can assume, all right, this is where I can make my gift. If I move to the next heading.
Meet Ivy, heading level 2.
Okay, so here are the stories. I want to read more. Now I'm going to jump back to the give my gift heading because I want to do that. So I can do that by pressing Shift and H.
Your gift, heading level 2.
Now I'm going to down arrow through this.
$25, $50 toggle button not pressed.
Okay, it tells me that button's currently not pressed. So I'll go $50.
Christmas appeal 2024.
And I'll just quickly mention here what will commonly happen in some of these platforms is those buttons there where it said $50 not selected. Sometimes it'll just say unlabeled button 2. unlabel button 3 and you don't have any context as a user. And in fact, I have been in scenarios before where I wanted to donate and I couldn't in the end, or at least I had to go and get someone sighted to help me. So you don't want people going away from your page and not giving their donation because they simply can't. Okay, so now I've activated that.
Christmas Appeal 2000.
I'm simply tabbing through.
Navigation region. Current navigate to step 2 of 3 to enter your details button.
And it tells
to
me that's
activate.
the current step.
First name left parent required right parent edit. Leaving table.
You can see that this is labeled correctly. Another really common thing is the screen reader user will find these edit boxes. And if I tab to the next one,
Last name left parent.
it's got a really good clear label on it, last name. So if it doesn't have a label, I might tab to the box and all it'll say is edit. So as you can imagine, not particularly helpful. Right, I'll come back and I'll stop sharing and I believe I'm passing it on to Daniel now. So thanks, team.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. Daniel speaking. I'm just going to share my screen with the slides now. Everyone can see that. All good. Jess, that coming through? Yep. Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining today. So I'm Daniel Neshi. I'm the digital campaign specialist here at Guide Dogs. I've worked really closely with Ben over the last year or so to, I guess, uplift our digital accessibility as a whole. And it's been really awesome to have suppliers like Razely that have met us halfway. I've worked extensively with their product team to implement a lot of these changes. And it's been a really awesome experience. And I'm going to go into just some really high level points for both the website and also for your EDMs that will really make the difference. And a point that I want to get across here is that a lot of these changes will make very minimal or no impact to any of your visual users, but will completely change how people with low vision or blindness might be able to interact with your sites and your EDMs. You know, I know coming from a fundraising background that a lot of choices are made with aesthetics and with conversion funnels in mind, but a lot of these changes are not going to impact any of that at all. So if we're talking about accessibility in action, we're talking about the website, and thank you to Ben for really giving some awesome kind of examples of that in live. When I first saw a screen reader, it really kind of hit home for me for how easy, but also how impactful a lot of these changes were. So one of the most critical things is proper header hierarchy. So we saw then header 1, header 2, header 3. It's that nesting hierarchy that allows for assistive technology to interpret and relay information really, really quickly. Like Ben mentioned, NVDA is a free screen reader. I've learned how to use that and use that in my testing. If you don't have access to someone who can test it for you on the fly, like I have the luxury of Ben, but proper header hierarchy is really, really important. I know a lot of the time header levels are chosen from an aesthetic point of view, but they make all the difference for navigating pages. Similarly with alt text, using alt text appropriately, marking images as decorative versus actually providing alt text. And everyone's preference for this is really different. Like Ben said, it's always good not to assume anything. As you would have noticed, when Ben navigated via graphics, he skipped a good portion of graphics that we had deemed as more decorative. They didn't provide anything to the conversion flow or the sign-up process. So we marked quite a few of them as decorative, and then I added alt text so that he could use them as examples. But it's always important to use appropriate, concise alt text so that people can relay what it is that you're presenting to them. And I tend to mark a lot of icons as decorative, as they don't tend to provide very much. If I go through the next one. So link text. So we generally like to avoid generic phrases like click here or read more. That seems to be cut off. But as you kind of saw with Ben, if he were to tab through with buttons or links and it just says learn more, it's a really tough position for someone with a screen reader because they really do need to know what's going on. So things like register now for individual fundraising is a really great descriptive link text that conveys the purpose and the destination of wherever that link and that destination is going. As well as link test typography plays an important role. So within guide dogs, we have a whole set of brand guidelines that we follow. For us, we use Proxima Nova. We have a couple of backup fonts as well that we use that are accessibly friendly. Typefaces, they maximize clarity. And yeah, we definitely recommend like a 14 point across like digital touch points in terms of sizing. But typography definitely does play a part, maybe not so much for screen reader users, but also considering your low vision users as well. Because certain fonts and italics, as I'll get to in a little bit, may disorientate people with low vision. Now let's talk a little bit about WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So for color, and we have our guidelines here. This hyperlink here that I've hyperlinked to this sentence is a contrast checker. So I encourage all of you to play around a little bit and see if your kind of charity colors meet accessibility guidelines. So the contrast checker will show you kind of a ratio. So for WCAG 2.0, like at a AAA level, it requires a 7:1 ratio, and then for text, and a 4.1 to 1 ratio for larger text. So I definitely encourage you to play around with a contrast checker. It's super beneficial just to kind of see if your colors at all line up with that. For us, when I'm creating things, I really try and aim as high as I go. Things like 11:1 for certain contrasts, and really minimum 7:1 for the texts. Now, as well as typography and colors, we like to avoid using all caps in navigation menus. So screen readers, firstly, may interpret them as acronyms. So when Ben and I were working on the Community Hub, navigation tabs like About Us was actually reading About US, like United States, is a very common used acronym. So we avoid using caps because screen readers may, interpret them as acronyms, but also people with low vision may find really blocky capital letter text quite difficult to read. So we tend to just use proper caps and proper formatting. I know usually all caps is an aesthetic choice, but something as small as that can make a really impactful difference for someone with low vision or blindness. For readability as well, we talk about that Zoom must be up 400% and the site must be able to remain functional and readable. That is another WCAG guideline. As well, content should not overlap, should not be cut off, or require horizontal scrolling. So definitely just crank the zoom up on your sites up to 400% and see if your site actually is still able to function and perform. Because there may be low vision users who aren't quite ready to navigate with a screen reader yet and are zooming to that quite high zoom in rate. And you want to make sure that your site is accessible to people, not only with blindness, but also with low vision. And the final point about websites is testing. I know a lot of the time development cycles, I've been there with websites.
Sorry, Jess speaking. Daniel, I think you've cut off.
Yeah. Am I back?
You're back.
Our office Wi-Fi is magnificent. What did you last hear from me?
Just about, you finished off reading, you finished off about the 400% to make sure it's performing.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry about that. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, all good. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm just in a cocoon room here in the office. So what I was talking about for testing was, I know that testing and building cycles for websites can be quite lengthy, all the way from initial development to the end. It's important that accessibility isn't an afterthought. Really bake that into your development timeline. Have someone working parallel with your developers to make a lot of those changes. So once your site is up, live and running, it's already as accessible as it can be. That's something that we've done with our community hub. Ben and I have worked in parallel to make things as accessible as it can be from launch. So just a couple points now about emails. So conversation I've had a lot of the time is about visual styling, things like bold and italics. So Screen readers will read all of this text in the same tone. They so express your meaning through clear wording. I know a lot of the time, donate now, things like that, in fundraising emails is bolded, and there's all this aesthetic choices around certain phrases. A screen reader is not going to represent that at all. So if you want to convey things like urgency, empathy, things like that, and you're doing that through styling as opposed to words, it is not going to come through at all. We also avoid using italics in general, as that can be quite disorientating for people with low vision. But for screen readers, that information is not going to come through at all. So choose your words more carefully than your aesthetics is kind of the point there. So we also like to keep as much of the copy within the email body or accessible web pages, rather than just relying on external PDFs or linked documents. For every individual screen reader user, you have no idea how that might render for them in their email. It might be really hard for them to access linked documents. They might not be as comfortable as someone like Ben to access those documents. So we try and keep a lot of the content in our email body or hyperlinked off to an accessible web page. In that same vein, we also like to make sure with our emails that we include a view in browser link in case the email renders poorly in a recipient's inbox, whereas a web experience might be a little bit easier to navigate for them. And finally, accessible buttons. So this was a bit of a challenge for us. Depending on your email client, buttons may read out really weird. I know for us, they read out literally like 0.16 rounded edge, and they read out all of this HTML code when Ben and I tested it. So try and do as much as you can within built-in HTML and your website client. If that doesn't work, there is a custom class of HTML called ARIA, which you can use, which the first two letters stands for accessibility rich. And then there's a tag in HTML called ARIA label. Now that will manipulate what the screen reader looks for, as opposed to looking for certain text. It will utilize that ARIA label first. And in our case, we use ARIA labels to override the HTML about buttons in our EDMs, so they are read out nice and cleanly in our EDMs. So, and the other thing I want to mention is all the points from the website implementation we talked about do carry over to email. So I think those are some top level stuff that can really low impact on your visual users, but will make all the difference to your screen reader and low vision users. And I think that's it. I will flick back to Jess. Thanks everyone for listening to my points on implementing that. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thanks, Daniel. It's Jess speaking. And if you're worried that you haven't taken notes quick enough to echo the point earlier, Raisley will be sending around a follow-up resource to help you with all of this. Cool. Can everyone see my screen, Daniel? Great. Awesome. So social media, this is probably the trickiest one to navigate, because unfortunately we can't form relationships with Zuckerberg at Meta like we can with the good people at Raisley. So we're often at kind of the whims of what the big tech companies choose to implement in their product pipeline. So we've included a few practical things that you can do to make your social media posts a bit more accessible to people with low vision and blindness. And I've also included 2 videos here, which I will play for you, which kind of demonstrate the point a bit better than I can explain it. And the first one is the overuse of emojis.
This is what too many emojis sound like with a screen reader.
The text, "Your emojis might look cool, but they're really hard for people with blindness or low vision to read," becomes,
"Pulse, your emojis innocent might look cool, sunglasses, 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 but they are really hard sweat for people with blindness, dog and low vision to read, Sunny bang bang."
Illustrates the point quite well. I think that that voiceover video. I love a good emoji. We love using the service dog and the guide dog emojis, but again, just be mindful of that every emoji has an alt text that's read out. So if you're using them in excess, it can become quite tiresome, to say the least. The other one I want to cover is non-standard fonts. Again, I'll play this video.
This is what weird fonts sound like with a screen reader.
The text, your fancy fonts might look cool, but they make it really hard for people with blindness or low vision to get the full story, becomes.
Your fancy might. But they make it, for people with or, to G Latin letter small capital T Latin letter small capital TH Latin letter small capital ULL Latin letter small capital TIY.
Again, that's pretty demonstrative of how important font choice is. There's also some other things I'd like to cover just and touch on briefly. So proper grammar and puns. The text is cut off here, but it should say puns or inside jokes that rely on sight. So one thing we love is a good pun, but as you've kind of heard through the use of screen readers, the screen readers sometimes, like, they won't be able to say, well, this has to have this bit of inflection and this bit of the word needs to have that inflection. So if you're using words, the screen reader may not get it, and it can actually become quite nonsensical if you're not inflecting on the right syllable to a screen reader. So it is just something to be mindful of grammar and puns and just inside jokes that rely on sight, that if read out by a screen reader could just make absolutely no sense because there's not a human to kind of translate that. Alt text and image descriptions. Similarly to how you might do on your website or your EDMs, a lot of the big platforms like Facebook organic posts, LinkedIn's really good at it. There are options for you to include alt text so that if someone is using a screen reader, it can actually describe what's in the image. They usually have like an AI, auto-generate, but I would encourage you to go back and review that because they're usually not, sometimes they're not particularly helpful. And you want to make sure they're impactful, short, but get the point of the image across, including the point of the video of the image. If you've included an image to kind of demonstrate humor, you can incorporate that sentiment within your image description and your alt text. One thing we do come up against is Facebook does not allow you to include alt text for ads. So we include them as a comment or at the bottom of our post as an image description. So it'll be read out by the screen reader as part of the post text. So something to be mindful of. And then the last one I want to make you aware of is using camel case for hashtags. So for those of you that don't know, camel case is where there's no spaces in between, but each letter is capitalized. So if we're using hashtags and you think of hashtag Guide Dogs Australia, for example, a screen reader isn't necessarily going to know that it's Guide Dogs Australia, and it may read it out all as a bit of mush, and again, won't really make sense. So just using camel case and making sure you're capitalizing the start of each new word in your hashtag can make all the difference, and even for sighted users as well. And I hope we've gotten that point across today, that a lot of these things you can implement are actually really useful for sighted readers as well. Cool. So again, don't fret. We have a free checklist. It's available on our website, and Raisley will be circulating it, I think within 24 to 48 hours for you guys to implement it. It's definitely not exhaustive. It's a pretty fast evolving space, especially on the technology side. And again, we're constantly learning and changing the way we do things if things get updated. So it's not exhaustive, but it should be really easy to implement, especially if you implement it like a QA checklist. So again, the more you double check your content using the guidelines, the more it becomes second nature to create more accessible content. As soon as you start to kind of expose yourself to it and you now know what you don't know, you become more aware of it. And similarly to how you might have a data QA check, a QA check for sending an email out about, double checking all the links that go to the right place, and add another step in that QA checklist of, do all images have alt text? And it becomes much more second nature. And that would be my advice of a practical way to implement this into your working lives, particularly with Christmas appeal. planning starting. If you've got a whole bunch of EDMs going out in November and in December, or any EDMs in the meantime, just add some accessibility checks into your QA processes. It'll make the world of difference. And that's it. I might hand back to Marina to cover the Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much, Jess, Ben, and Dan. This was incredibly insightful, especially, I guess, Ben's demonstration of what a website, what a fundraising campaign actually looks like, and the donation form. So now we have time for a few questions, and we already have a question from Natasha on asking for recommendations on links for EDMs. So please give me some examples of good link text instead of read here, especially for buttons with limited space like in newsletters. So yeah, excited to hear from you.
Just speaking, I think just make it contextual. And Ben, feel free to disagree or correct me, but instead of learn more, it can be as simple as learn more about the crux of the issue, or even do you need learn more, or can that link actually be the place where it's directed? So I think more contextually of what it's trying to convey, rather than just have that in as a separate entity and not relying on it. So bring the context into the button would be my advice.
Jazz has been here. I agree. And if you've got like that's best practice. Okay, so ideally your link you want to keep it short and concise. I take your point that you might have scenarios where you've got a very small button. In those cases, there, like I said, our preference would be to still have a meaningful link title, but you could use an ARIA tag that will convey more information to the screen reader, but for the visual user, it'll still just say learn more. So like I said, we recommend doing it, having the descriptive link there for everyone, but I do understand there are those cases where there's limited space, and that could be a workaround. So we won't go into technical details, but there is an ARIA tag, similar to what Daniel mentioned before, that'll give different information to the screen reader and not change the visual text.
And sorry, just to add, just speaking again, again, one thing that can be beneficial to people with low vision or blindness, as well as sighted users, is I'm sure if you monitor digital activity, you'll notice that quick scrolling is a big thing. So people will open an email and they'll kind of like flick through the email or flick through the page really quickly. So looking at from a structural point of view, those call to action buttons are one of the things that people's eyes go to the most. So I think it's probably good practice to assume that people aren't necessarily reading the whole email and will be skipping to those headings and those call to action buttons to get the gist. So again, it's a good practice to implement regardless, to not only support screen reader users, but also for people that flick through their emails at the speed of light, like I do.
Yeah, good point, Jess. Support note donations too, more donations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Marina speaking again. So another question from Natasha on the same topic of linking. What are your thoughts on hyperlinking text within text like they do in news articles? Does this read well, and is it clear that you can click on this part of the sentence?
It's Ben here. So yes, provided they've used just standard HTML as the preference, if they've used just a standard HTML anchor to link that text. And I assume you mean there's scenarios where it might have one particular word, and it, like retina, for example, if we think of the eye and the link may just be retina, and it takes you to somewhere where you can read about the retina. They do work well, provided they're coded properly. And once again, you just want to keep in mind that ideally the linked text should be enough to let you know what you're about to go and read about.
Thank you, Ben. Marina speaking again with a question from Glenn on social media. So the comment is, on social media, I always alt text, but have noticed pages like Guide Dogs also add a text sentence in the post to describe the image. Is that best practice, or is the alt text sufficient? And I believe we have another question from Jess on the chat on the same topic of social media. And the question is, would you recommend putting an image description in the caption of every single social post, or is alt text on the image enough?
Jess and Dan, are you happy for me to have a go at this? And feel free to jump in. Great. So it's Ben, everyone. Look, initially we were doing the text-based descriptions, so those that everyone can see, regardless of being a screen reader user. So in the actual post text, we were doing that all the time because many of the platforms, if not all of them, didn't support alt text. Now that they do, we've continued that to try and capture the biggest audience. But if you're going to do it in both, what we recommend is the alt text will be short and succinct. So it might be the alt text that will only be picked up by screen reader users and some people who use text-to-speech software. So they might not be using a screen reader full time, but they just want to read some speech aloud. You'd make that short and succinct. So a picture of a guide dog in harness might be the alt text. And then in the actual description that everyone will see, that will provide a longer, more in-depth description. So that's how we deal with it. We don't want to have a descriptive alt text and then have the screen reader user reading exactly the same thing in the comment. So I hope that makes sense. And Jess and Daniel, feel free to jump in if you want to add.
Just speaking, no, that's pretty much it. There's a fine line, I think, between being descriptive in your alt text versus being, repeating yourself and creating a more cumbersome experience. So, to Ben's point, that's probably best practice. But to the other question, yeah, we do try to do it on every single post. It's part of our QA practices, and I hope we're good at it. And it's certainly one of those things where when you start in the digital team, it's like you have to kind of ingrain it into your processes. But once you start doing it, it becomes really second nature. So yes, we do try to do it on every single post.
If I can add a little bit here, it's Ben again. I told everyone I never shut up. If we don't do that, if you go to our website, you'll notice that we don't do that just on our website. If we've got a picture of something on there, we'll just have alt text typically. The only reason you may see it on our website is if, let's say, for example, you've got an artwork displayed there and we've got a short, succinct alt text that really, to describe that artwork and do it justice, you need a really description. So that's an example of where we would have it on just a standard website. But on our socials, we've been a little bit more cautious, purely because of the alt text support being a bit flaky over the years.
Marina speaking. I think no new questions arrived. So yeah, anyone with another question, if you're curious and you want to ask one of our guest speakers a specific question as well, we're here for it. And just as a reminder again, you'll be getting a recording of this webinar. Please share it with your team. I guess this is what I'm doing with the Raisely team as well. Internally, I think this is invaluable knowledge and everyone should know. And if you're using Raisely, the good thing is that, as Daniel and Ben shared today, a lot of the things are built in. So you have a color accessibility contracts tracker. The alt text, if I'm not wrong, are marked as decorative if you keep the alt text empty. But if you make sure you use the labels correctly and follow the checklist will be circulating after this webinar, just so we can make the word more accessible for everyone. So yeah, no other questions. I would like to thank you again, Daniel, Jess, and Ben, for being here, for sharing this valuable hour of your day with us. And yeah, do you want to bye to everyone?
Sorry, Marina, it's Jess speaking. You cut off just towards the end there. What did you want from us?
Oh, sorry. If you want to say goodbye to the people that are still here with us.
Oh yeah, Jess speaking. I'll go first. Thank you, everyone. Again, it's a journey. And thank you again for whether it's your first step or This is old hat, and you just were curious. Thank you for coming along and learning. It's invaluable.
Yeah, quick one for me, everyone. It's Ben here. I just really appreciate people taking the time. It just shows me that you obviously have a genuine care factor about getting this right. And sincerely, from someone from the blind and low vision community, I can't tell you what an impact it has. So thank you.
I think my internet's stable enough, maybe.
We've got you.
But no, thank you everyone for joining. Honestly, from a digital specialist point of view, in the last year, it's been eye-opening, and a lot of these changes you can all make really easily. And you, as someone really close to the cause, you'll see like the difference it makes for people with screen readers and low vision. It's so easy to make their lives so much easier on the digital side.
Brilliant. So thanks again, everyone. I'll be wrapping up this call and look forward to your inbox. I'll see you on an upcoming webinar. See you.
Great. All the best. Cheers.
Bye.